Welcome back, everyone. My next guest has also been on the air with me before. I have Troy Froderman, and he is one of the principals of FR Law Group. You're a local law firm here in, well, you're located where?
7th Street and Camelback, essentially.
So, okay, but you specialize in a different type of area. And when I first met you, I didn't even know. Explain it. Tell everybody, welcome to the show. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Carol. So I've been practicing law in Phoenix for over 30 years, and my particular practice emphasizes on insurance recovery for businesses. So just like you and I have our own insurance policies either for auto or homeowners, businesses also have their own lines of insurance, ranging from everything from general liability to cyber liability to risk management and to errors and omissions. The number of lines for businesses for insurance probably exceeds over 45 or 50.
We are live on Facebook, so hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. How important is it for someone to, first of all, have insurance, because sometimes we don't have it, they don't think they need it. But then, of course, something happens, and not only do they see that they need the insurance, but then they need someone like you.
Right. So one of the things that, just like you and I, don't like paying premiums on insurance policies, businesses don't really enjoy it either, obviously. And it's usually one of those things that's the equivalent of thinking about taxes. It's a necessary evil in order to do business. So what we find, and I've experienced over the last 30 years, is that when it comes to purchasing insurance, a business, no matter how sophisticated it is, doesn't apply the same amount of energy and force and concentration on purchasing policies as it does its ordinary business transactions. So it's very important that you have a good relationship with an insurance broker. And that insurance broker, you want somebody who's experienced, somebody who isn't attached to one insurance company. So typically what will happen is you may go to an insurance broker, an insurance agent, and they're the designated agent for, let's just say, Acme Insurance Company. Well, they have very little incentive to shop the market for you to get the best premium with the best deductible with the most coverage. So one of the things that we counsel our clients on is when you are out procuring insurance, make certain that your broker is actually doing their own RFPs, request for proposals, with various insurance companies. You want at least to have 3 bids in from different, or quotes, from insurance carriers, so that you're making certain, just like you do with any important decision for your business, that you're getting the best bang for your buck.
Right, and that's a good point. I didn't know that. And even someone like me, I'm a business owner, and I needed to get it. And it's something that if you don't think about these things, this is what I love about the show the most, is that all of this information that they hear, this is something that you might hear and say, you know what, I really should do something like that. And when they do, what is the best type then of insurance is right for that company?
Well, it depends on the type of business that
Right.
you're in. Obviously, if you're a large transportation company, you need the best possible transportation policies in place. And there are certain endorsements and coverages that Arizona recognizes that, say, for example, maybe California doesn't. So you got to make certain that the type of policy that you're needing fits the best rating in the state that you're located in. And for example, general liability policies, those are the most basic policies that every business has. It covers you for any type of third-party liability for property damage or bodily injury. There are hundreds of available options in the market. Sometimes the market's hard, sometimes it's soft. So what you should be doing is, if you're a small business, you probably don't have somebody in a risk management position other than somebody who drew the short straw, and they have to do that role for the company. If you're a medium-sized company or a larger company, you likely do have somebody who's a risk manager who knows the ins and outs of having to purchase insurance policies. It's it's critically important that you look at what your specific risks are, because if you're a transportation company, I hate to keep going back to that, your risks are different than a mining company.
Absolutely.
So that you want to make certain, and I think I told you this last time, but the practice of law has evolved over the last number of years, and very few lawyers are generalists. You wouldn't go to me to have you, or me to prepare your estate planning, nor would you come to me for a medical malpractice claim. Well, certain brokers and certain agencies have their own specialization. I think that one of the largest and well-known insurance companies in Arizona deals with workers' compensation. So if you're going to apply for workers' compensation coverage, which you have to have in Arizona, there are really two carriers that you would go to. You wouldn't go to those carriers, for example, if you were looking for errors and omissions. So you got to be very careful about your selection. And one of the things I think you're probably taking away from this is that I'm not citing any statutes, I'm not citing case law, I'm not citing precedent. A lot of this is common sense that our firm brings to the table in helping our clients make the right decisions.
Well, but also what brings you to the table is, it's always, God forbid, that something happens, obviously. But we're living in a world where a lot happens. In my life, and I told you this before, I've been doing this business now for 13 years, and in my life I would have never thought that taping someone, that even someone that brought something in here, knowing it, would cause an issue. And now I had to change the way I do business, and God forbid, I might have had to call you if I needed you, and I would have.
Well, some of the examples that I think of, and I'll make a quick story here. I have a client who manufactures engines for large equipment, and they have a routine, a business of, they actually customize the engine. So they're not going to customize the engine until the customer has paid for it. So why would they go to the expense of doing that otherwise?
Right.
Well, one of the products that was adapted to ended up having some issues with it, and they had purchased insurance for that type of a product recall. The insurance carrier in that specific instance denied the claim because they argued that my client owned the equipment and therefore it wasn't a third-party liability. So these are the the nuances that we end up encountering.
In today's world, we do, because there's somebody that's going to find something, some way to come up, and we're going to talk a little bit about, the cyber, that kind of stuff that is going on right now too. So important. Before we go to a break, I want to give out some information about you, because yes, it's wonderful that you are telling them about what they should do to protect themselves and make sure that they have the right insurance and all that, but they need to understand where you come into that, okay? And we're going to talk about that. You're rated with the Better Business Bureau. You are right here across from Xavier High School, but you help anyone, you said, nationwide.
Our practice on insurance coverage is a national practice.
So it's a national practice. You do free consultations with people?
We do, and I think I told you last time that for the types of cases that we monitor, they're really more of the bet the company case. If you're a smaller firm with a smaller issue and it's really not affecting your bottom line, we'll still do a free consultation and try to help you in that regard. But we're really looking at those very complicated coverage issues that go beyond just the normal negotiation.
But it's all about the case, right? It
Yes.
is all about the case. So if you need to talk to them, it's not just a little something. You might make sure that you are taken care of. They can go ahead and do a free consultation for you. Your website is frlawgroup.com, and the phone number to call them direct, it's 602-566-7425. I would say write that number down, because you never know when you're going to need it. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk further, especially to you people out there during the break. We're going to talk to you in Facebook land, okay? So again, check them out on their website. It's frlawgroup.com. Their phone number again, it's 602-566-7425. Hang tight. We're going to be back in just a minute. So talking on Facebook still, because we're live, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the, like, the cases that another case that you might say might not be so crazy like that. Maybe something that could be a little bit more typical that where you might come in.
Sure. So most businesses have credit card transactions that they use. And so what almost every business pays a service charge for their credit cards. It can be anywhere from 1% to 3%. With cyber liability, we had a client, and this could happen to anybody, but we had a client whose proprietary information for its customers was compromised, and they ended up having to replace everybody's MasterCards and Visa cards to the tune of about $8 million.
That happened with one business.
Yes, but
Wow.
it was a national chain.
Wow.
But that could happen, I mean, not that size of the claim, but that could happen to anybody. And so there are policies out there that cover cyber liability. And so we were able to get the client fully reimbursed under that policy, but initially it was denied for a variety of technical reasons. And so I think that's an example of whether us or some other law firm comes in, helps read the policy, understand the policy, and then negotiates the claim with the carrier.
I think that's super important also to talk about when we get back, because to me, when everybody's in business, right? And right now with the internet, I think a lot of us also have people that are getting hurt by people of what they say about us, right? Does that include this kind of thing?
That'd be different, but that's actually covered under the general liability policy.
Oh, that is?
And it's called the advertising injury clause.
Oh.
And that can cover defamatory comments. It can also cover, with some except with in a limited way, copyright infringement.
Mm-hmm. Right. I had that happen to me too, but I didn't really care that they were doing it because they weren't me.
Well,
does that make sense?
Except you have to police your copyright, and if you don't police it and you're aware that somebody's violating it, then you could lose your copyright rights.
Oh. Well, that happened a while back.
Yeah, so it's better to just not say that
They're
you were
not
aware of it.
Oh, just say you didn't know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, they were doing a show, not here, another one, but they took my words, but they didn't last. They weren't me.
Well, that wouldn't be copyright, that'd be trademark, but still, or trade dress.
So welcome back, everyone. And we're talking with Troy Froderman, and he is one of the principals of FR Law Group. I love talking about this kind of stuff, and we have a lot of business owners that listen to this station because it's the kind of station that it is. Again, the information that you hear here, maybe it's something that you maybe know somebody that's dealing with something like this. Tell them about it. That's what it's all about. That's what networking is all about. When we were at the break, you were talking a little bit about the story that you were talking about, so they can hear something super important for people to hear.
Sure. So almost every business that I'm aware of does take credit cards for payments, and pretty much every business pays a service charge for that credit card transaction. If you become subject to somebody hacking into your business, they can compromise the credit card information for your customers. I've had that happen on a couple of occasions. Had one, it was a national chain where there was a hack, and they had that particular chain had to go back and reimburse MasterCard and American Express for having to reissue credit cards to thousands of customers. Now, there is a policy that was in place that this company had. It was a cyber liability policy that did cover certain cyber attacks. But I think, as I mentioned to you the last time I was here, that policy, like every other insurance policy, may be tens, if not multiple tens of pages in length. That portion of the policy that provides protection is 2 paragraphs. The rest is primarily exclusions. And then there's some endorsements, and the endorsements eat up some of the exclusions.
There's always exclusions.
Yes.
And those exclusions is somewhere where you would come in.
Correct.
Because, I hate those things.
But here's a crazy thing that most people don't really think about, but you think about it in your own personal affairs. So the way that businesses purchase policies are on renewals, and then when they get the renewed policy, it may be up to 4 to 5 to 6 months before they actually get a physical copy of the entirety of the policy.
Yeah.
But think about that. By the time you've received the physical policy, you're already starting the renewal process again.
Right.
So very few businesses, or at least a number of businesses, never review what they purchased. And so, for example, on that cyber liability attack, that's where we came in. The insurance company had denied the claim on a specific exclusion. We were then able to show them, through a lot of legal arguments, that one of the endorsements eroded the exclusion that they were relying on, or at least a good portion of it. So the client was happy. The insurance company accepted their responsibility, but most people like to think, the whole thing about the good hands people. Insurance companies are in the business of making a profit, and so if they paid out on every claim without any ifs, ands, or buts, then we wouldn't have insurance. So they have a responsibility to their shareholders. I, as the lawyer for the policyholder, have a responsibility to the policyholder.
Sure.
There's one other quick example that I think might resonate with your audience, and that's the e-commerce is evolving every day. And so one of the things that we have been involved in is where a client transacts business by wires to its various customers or vendors. It's not uncommon for those wires to be intercepted, or for somebody to set up a fake account with a fake email and email our client and say, you owe us $150,000 for this service. The client pays the $150,000 and discovers quickly, or maybe not quickly, but discovers that they had been defrauded. And then the real vendor steps up and says, well, that's a shame, but you still owe me the $150,000. There are policies that do cover that type of fraudulent transaction. They're evolving. It's very important that you understand what's covered. In some instances, you may have $1 million in coverage, but you may have a $500,000 deductible. And so it's very complicated. These are the types of things that an ice cream store doesn't want to think about. They want to have their protection, and then they want to sell their product. And so that's where we come in, because that's what we focus on.
So I was just going to ask you, somebody's listening and they're that ice cream store owner or whoever, and they're sitting there, wow, I haven't dusted mine off in a long time, and I'm wondering if I should make sure that I'm covered correctly. Could they call you and talk to you about that?
Sure. I'd be happy to answer their questions. Every policy can be different, and that's because there are endorsements that agents and brokers negotiate for broader coverage, or sometimes the carrier insists on it to restrict coverage if there's some pattern or history of the business that they're concerned with.
What about second opinions? What about someone who might be in the midst of something right now? Can they talk to you?
Sure. Now, obviously, we have to be careful about attorney-client privilege issues, but it certainly, much like a diagnosis from a medical doctor, it's always helpful to get a second opinion.
It always is. They're rated with the Better Business Bureau. They're going to do a consultation for you for free. That number to call is 602-566-7425. The website is frlawgroup.com, and they work nationwide, even though they're here locally. You've been doing this for 31 years.
Yeah, something must be wrong with me, but I enjoy it. It's a very robust bar in terms of the lawyers who do this. You either are on the defense side, always representing the carriers, or you're always representing the policyholders.
Quick question, and I'll answer it quickly for me. In the last, because you've been doing it for 31 years, and we've always had to have insurance claims, and we've always had people that take advantage of certain things too. But have you seen that rise quite a bit in the last, let's say, 10 years, 5 years?
Well, that's true of everything in our society, from my perspective, but particularly in the area of the law, there are, on both sides of the aisle, I believe, claims that are submitted that are really stretching the intent of the policy, and then there are carriers who take very intransigent and unreasonable positions when in fact the policyholder was just looking for what it had purchased.
Mm-hmm. But also a lot of people getting burned.
A lot of people, particularly individuals as opposed to the businesses.
And don't try and do it yourself.
No.
You know, and have somebody who's a competent, very experienced attorney, especially when it comes to something like this. You have to make sure that you get the right person. They've been doing it for 31 years. You can call them direct at 602-566-7425. The various levels of insurance, really quickly, how do they apply?
So you have primary insurance, and then depending on your business, you likely will have excess policies over that. Those are called towers. So you may have a primary policy that covers you, normally it's $1 million. And then on top of that, depending on your risk exposure, it can go anywhere from an additional $2 million to $10 million. Large transportation companies, $50 to $100 million. There are also umbrella policies that apply to various different lines of coverage. So it can get not necessarily complicated, but you have to follow the fortunes of those various policies.
And what the main thing that you need to do, first of all, is get yourself covered. Number
Right.
one, get you covered correctly. And also to make sure that you get those out, look at them, especially when he says, like, let's say you have gotten it and you're going to renew. Usually, already you've got it ready to renew when you have just gotten your paperwork.
Yeah, and correct. And one of the things that I try to advise clients beforehand, but oftentimes it's a new client coming to us, will come in and say, well, I've got $2 million in coverage, so I don't even know why the insurance company is hassling me on this. And I can say, well, because here's what they're reading from the policy that you purchased. And so we need to be in a position to respond to them to explain why there remains coverage despite what they're pointing out to.
But also to make sure, even beforehand, that it's done correctly.
Well, I'd like to say that people come to us before that, but
They don't. You
Yeah.
always come after the fact,
Right.
and now, unfortunately. But like me, even though I don't have a big, huge corporation, a little person like me would have needed someone like you, because I would have wanted to make sure, because that person could have tried to get, they see KFNX and they see all that. But people can get really hurt. You've got to make sure that you don't.
right, a $20,000 loss to a business can be the equivalent of a $200 million loss to a large conglomeration. So it really does matter.
They've been around for 31 years. The website is frlawgroup.com. They're rated with the Better Business Bureau. They are located right here across from Xavier High School, but they can help anyone nationwide. What are your final words today?
Review your policies. Be careful about what you're buying and make sure that your risk is fully covered.
And if you don't know how to read them, talk to them. They can even help you maybe on something that you might not understand. That phone number to call is 602-566-7425. They'll do a free consultation for you. Folks, we live in a different world today than ever before, but it's always been in this situation, especially when it comes to business, and somehow people do need to make sure that they are covered. Make sure you are covered correctly, and if you don't understand it, talk to somebody who does know. They have 31 years of experience. If something happens to you, you want to make sure you have a competent and extremely experienced attorney such as them. Again, that number to call them is 602-566-7425. Their website is frlawgroup.com, rated with the Better Business Bureau, and they'll do a free consultation. Again, that number is 602-566-7425. And maybe it's not you. Maybe it's someone that you know. Tell them about it. That's what networking is all about. We're live on Facebook. We're going to be sharing this show right afterwards for everybody. Again, call them, guys. That number is 602-566-7425. You never know if you need something like this, so write it down. Check out their website. It's frlawgroup.com or 602-566-7425.